Good afternoon, everybody. It's time to do a little bit of a news roundup, and this roundup is mostly going to concern the Seahawks coaches and the coaching staff they may or may not have in this upcoming season. So, obviously, a couple days ago, I made the video talking about Canales. He's off to Tampa. That has not changed. But now the question becomes, who is Canales going to take with him to Tampa Bay? Because usually when a coach gets promoted to another and goes to another team with that promotion, they will take at least a coach or two with him, and often he'll take a player as well. Maybe even a couple players. It's just something that allows you to be a little more work with more familiar things when you're over there. So when Dave Canales got the job as the Bucs offensive coordinator, you kind of suspected he would bring along at least one of his coaches, and we now can confirm as of yesterday that is indeed the case. Brad Idzik, who was previously our assistant receiver coach since I believe 2019, is heading to Tampa Bay to join the staff under Dave Canales and Todd Bowles over there as the full receivers coach. So that's a promotion for Brad as well. So good for him. I mean, you look at our receivers since 2019. That was the year we drafted DK Metcalf. I believe that was also the year that Lockett had his first ever 1,000-yard season. Since that year, it's been a pretty good run of receiver play for these Seahawks. Lockett's had nothing but 1,000-yard seasons since. Metcalf made an all-pro team and has turned in... Well, he almost had 1,000 yards in 2021, and then he had 1,000 yards this year. It's one of the best runs of a 1-2 punch at receiver for Seattle that they've ever had. One of the best they've ever had. So you got to say he's done his job. Now, he was an assistant receiver coach, not the receiver coach. So his role in that is obviously, it's hard to discern, but the stuff that he was involved in went well when he was here, I would say. I think that's the right way to put it. I mean, you could also maybe even call out David Moore's development as a player, because David Moore was kind of nothing when he got here, right? He was somebody, a complete afterthought, and he ended up becoming a competent player for us for a couple years there. So I would say that Brad Idzik deserves this promotion, and we'll see what ends up happening over there in Tampa Bay with them. Now, I don't know if any other coaches are going to follow, but maybe more interesting to Seahawks fans right now is which players might follow. So to briefly touch on that, because it's a hot topic right now, I'm going to maintain the belief that I expressed a couple days ago. It's going to be so hard for Tampa to build the cap space to get Geno that I kind of feel like it's just not worth it for a Geno Smith level player. Geno's good. Geno's really good. But is he great? I don't know. I don't know if I'd call him great, right? Like, if you're going to gut your salary cap and completely mangle your roster to go after a quarterback the way Tampa would need to, because again, they are $60 million over. $60 million over. I feel like it's got to be for like an Aaron Rodgers. And I mean prime Aaron Rodgers, not this Aaron Rodgers. It's got to be for Peyton Manning. It's got to be for, an all-time great. It's not going to be for Geno Smith. So when you think about it, the Bucs need to clear $60 million just to get under the cap. Then they need to clear probably an additional at least $10 million to pay Geno. And then they're going to have to clear another several million, probably 20, 25 million, so they can afford a team that is good enough to take advantage of having Geno Smith. Like, what is the point of gutting yourself to get Geno Smith, and then you're like, okay, Geno Smith, go out there and try to win a Super Bowl with the team that Tom Brady, and I know Tom Brady was kind of washed up last year, but the team that Tom Brady couldn't even get to a winning record. You're going to have to improve the team at that point so Geno Smith can actually be in a position to go win a Super Bowl. And that's going to take money. And you add it all up, Tampa Bay is going to have to clear like $100 million in cap. And I'm going to say this again, The Bucks have limited ability to clear cap space because a lot of their problem is the Tom Brady void year cap hit that apparently they can split it across 2 different years, but they can't get rid of it. They can't push most of it. They can only push like some of it. So I don't think Geno's on the table. I do think Drew Lock is. Drew Lock is only going to cost like $5 to $6 million a year, maybe 7. You bring him in. You say you're the starter for a year. Show us what you got. You're going to have good receivers. You're going to have a pretty good offensive line. Show us something, or we're going to draft a guy next year. And that's not bad. I do think that is a possibility. And look, I like Drew Lock. I think that if we don't rock with Geno, rocking with Drew Lock for a year makes a lot of sense. But if he ends up going to join Canales in Tampa Bay, then I think that makes sense. And I think that's a good opportunity for him. And I got not much bad to say about it. All right, so that's about all we can say about the Canales situation and what might come of that. There may be other players who go to Tampa Bay to join Canales, but it's hard to judge right now. Like, would Rashad Penny go? Maybe. Would Marquise Goodwin go? Maybe. Like, I think that's kind of hard to really feel strongly about one way or the other. But I do want to talk about what's going on in Denver right now because, like I'd say a week ago, it looked like it was a done deal that they were going to poach Sean Desai to be their DC. Well, Desai had an interview, and apparently it didn't go well. Or at the very least, if it went well, something else must have happened to where Denver just decided they want to go in a different direction. Because since that interview, A, Desai has not been hired, and B, Denver has basically moved on to other candidates, among them Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan, who has not coached in the NFL in 7 years, I think. Yeah, I think it's 6 or 7 years. So you had the opportunity to get one of the young, promising, up-and-coming defensive minds in this league. A guy that most people will tell you is, his star is on the rise. He's a great defensive mind. People like this guy. And instead, you're going to go after a guy who will probably be pretty good in this role, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't been in the league in a long time. He's been working for ESPN for years. Last time he was in the NFL, if we're being honest, he kind of embarrassed himself. Like, he did a lot of stupid stuff. So, I mean, I'm not saying Rex Ryan's going to be bad. I'm not saying it's a bad idea for the Broncos, but point is, seems like they're not interested in Sean Desai anymore. And we also had this earlier, not earlier today, a couple days ago. The Broncos are expected to interview Vance Joseph for their DC job. And Vance Joseph got fired yesterday by the Cardinals. So it seems like one way or the other, Denver's going to get somebody that is not Sean Desai. And Vance Joseph is not exactly somebody that is a hot commodity at the DC spot right now. In fact, I think that his stock is kind of low. So the fact that Sean Desai apparently can't draw interest over these two tells me the interview didn't go terribly well, and Denver is kind of out on him. So good news. We get to keep Sean Desai. The bad news is it seems like we're going to keep Sean Desai because other teams don't really want him because they don't think he's very good, I guess. So it's the catch-22, right? If you lose a coach to another team, it's because people thought that coach was good. If you get to keep the coach because other teams don't want him, it's because other teams don't think he's good. So whatever, I guess. All right, so that's the news. Let me know what you guys think about all this. I'm happy about Desai. I'm going to say this right now. I'm just going to be clear. I'm happy about keeping Desai. I still think this guy has a bright future in this league. I think that some of the problems he might be having getting a job right now as a DC are because the defense was so bad in Seattle this year, and he can't detach himself from that. And it's hard for me to blame what happened to this defense in 2022 on Sean Desai. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me why I would do that. But I do acknowledge that it's kind of weird that Denver seemed hot to trot on him a week ago, and then he interviewed and nothing. And they're actually turning over rocks involving like Rex Ryan, who's been out of the league for more than half a decade, rather than hiring Desai, who I believe, by the way, Fangio even recommended that Desai go to Denver. The stars seemed aligned, and then it just didn't happen. And I don't consider Vance Joseph to be a particularly appealing prospect either, and yet it seems like Vance Joseph is currently looked at as being a better potential hire than Desai. So we'll see how things go. There's still time for things to go the other way, of course. I mean, you look at Denver's coaching staff, coaching search, head coach search. There were many moments where it seemed like the Sean Payton thing was completely thrown out the window. And then after the D'Amico Ryans hire in Houston, they were like, okay, let's go. And it happened. So that could still happen. But as of right now, looks like Sean Desai is staying put, which, hey, I think it's good news. I like it. Now, the main impact on the Seahawks would be whether or not they're going to stick with the 3-4 defense, which is much more likely now. But that's a conversation for another time. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks.